Hello viewers! In the last video, I talked about Python, which is a programming language that's designed for beginner programmers. In that video, we talked about comments, variables, different variable types, and the print statement, which outputs a value to the screen. In this video, I'll be talking about the basics of functions, which will include built-in functions, user-defined functions, and even a touch of modules. Let's get right into it. Built-in functions in Python are automatically there and ready for you to go ahead and set up. For example, the print function, the input function, which takes input from the user, and the evaluate function. All of these functions, despite having different meanings, always end in an open and closed parenthesis. This is so that Python knows we're talking about a function and not just any kind of value. For example, a string or a number, etc. User-defined functions are functions that the user can add in to a specific program at any point. In Python, we can use the define keyword. The define keyword allows us to make our own function. After the define keyword, we can have a name for our function, which we can just label name for now. This colon right here says, "Hey Python, I want to make a function called name." Now with this, we get an indent. We get this indent because without the indent, Python doesn't know what's in or outside the function definition. So let's say we have a print statement here for a function. And let's say, hello viewers. And then outside the function, we add a print, goodbye viewers. When we run this program, we only get the goodbye viewers. This is because when you define a function, the function is not run, it is only defined. So when we need to actually run this function, we need to type the name of the function. For example, name. So once we run name and print goodbye viewers, we get hello viewers and goodbye viewers. Now, I'm going to comment all of this so that it's here for future use. Some functions have parameters. Parameters are different inputs that the function takes so that the output will change. For example, the print function that we have been using so much has one input, which is our string. A string, which was discussed in the last video, is any series of text. So we can say, this is some cool text. And it will print our input or parameter. If we wanted to define a function that had parameters, we would say define, let's say our function will be add. If we want parameters, we have to have parameter labels in our function definition. So we can say add x and y. We separate them with a comma and a space, and then we have a colon at the end to tell Python, hey, we want a function called add that takes in two parameters, x and y. Then we can use the return keyword. The return keyword says that we want to, whenever this function is called, we want the function to return to give back a value. In our case, we want the function to return x plus y, since we are adding the two numbers. If we were to call this function with, let's say, 5 and 4, you would expect a 9 output, because 5 plus 4 is 9. However, when we run this, we don't get any output. It's not that the function is not working, but we need to print our value out. Now that we're printing the value, we get the number 9. This is very handy in case there's a specific string of commands that you want to repeat over and over and over again, but it's long enough and you really don't want to have to do it over and over and over again. So instead, you can simply make functions. Modules in Python are sort of like boxes that you can get into your Python program and take some things out of the box to use. For example, if we wanted to use a math module, which includes functions like square rooting and powering, as well as values like an Euler's number. To use these, we need to import the math module by saying import math. If we want to use anything from the math module, such as if you wanted to print pi, we would print, and then we can't just say pi. Python doesn't know what we're talking about because it's not defined. Instead, we use pi. This tells Python that we need the constant pi in the math module. This, when we execute it, will print pi, or some digits of it at the very least, 3.14159. If we wanted to just get pi, but we didn't want to have to write math.py over and over again, we can do from math import pi. What this will do is it'll take only one value from the math module, pi, and then we can use that. Now if we print pi, we won't have to use math.py since we are only concerned about pi. And we get our value. We can use an asterisk to symbolize we want everything from the module. So this will include pi and therefore it works. But if we have another value for pi, like 17.2, if we print pi, instead of being pi now, it'll be 17.2 because we changed it. The best thing that we can do is if we want one thing, we can just either import that one thing, or we can simply use import math and then use math.py. Now, even though we have our pi variable set to 17.2, the math.py variable is 3.14. That's about it for today's video. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe button. I would really appreciate it if you could do that for me. Anyways, I'll see you in the next installment of our Python series. Goodbye.